I have had ideas, thank you, hold your applause, and I've taken those through drafts to production, and I want to show you how I did that from the start. All things working properly, you'll, at the end of this series, be able to write your own script from your idea that you'll have had with the help of this series, produce whatever's necessary, and then take those into a successful pitch. My name's Jason Waite. I write and direct Starship Goldfish, which was a concept that became eventually a pitch over a number of years. I've also written the most recent season of Red vs. Blue. I wrote on some episodes of Genlock, which is featuring Maisie Williams and fucking David Tennant and Michael B. Jordan. To begin, you're going to need a why, because you're going to go from point A to point B. Point A is where you're currently sitting, and point B is in some far-flung room shaking a hand, and only your why will get you there. You'll refer back to it for strength, this reason for doing. You have to ask yourself, why am I making a TV show? Is it to get wealthy? Getting into animation for the money is like planting a tree because you're hungry. You got to do it for the love of the thing. You got to do it because there's something in you that needs to be manifested. You want to tell your own story, no matter how convoluted the layers between your life and the life of a subaquatic amphibious death lord. You can tell your own story however the fuck you like. That's the wonder of this thing, you know. Your why will define your show, and shows that are just made for money, you can tell. What kept me pursuing one single idea for like 10 entire adult years was something that I didn't even realize at the time. I wasn't cognizant of the fact that I was writing about myself. I was writing this goofy sci-fi story that was 100% about my own life. And I had no idea. In my show, I had this exuberant man-child sees settling down as more of a risk to life and limb than his actual danger that he's constantly putting himself in. And whether or not that's an objectively worthwhile story to tell, it meant something to me, clearly, otherwise I wouldn't have written it. And your idea will have to mean something to you too. So make sure first, before you start, the very first thing you have is why. You know why you're doing it. Now, I'd like to preface this video, and by extension all of these videos, by saying this is just how I've done things. So I have found some success with it, and I'm just going to tell you how I did it. That's called a disclaimer, and it works. Ideas. Now, you'll have ideas all the time. You already have ideas all the time. You're in transit, you're chatting to a friend, and then you stop the conversation so that you can write an idea down like a freak. So if you've got a smartphone, I use an app called Evernote. Save a series of documents in some kind of note-taking app. So I have one for jokes, one for dialogue, one for ideas for episodes, things that I note down as visual reference. It's just good to have them all categorized and ready, because at some point you're going to go back to them and be like, oh, I need a dialogue idea, oh, I need a joke. Or what I tend to do is before I start, I'll go through my ideas folder and list out all the things that I think are relevant to this story that I'm writing. And then I have them on hand, so it's like, okay, well, this event here or this joke here will go quite well there. Like a band's first album. Your first album that you put out is like 10 years worth of ideas and riffs and poetry. Your show is your first album. Let those ideas accrue. If you haven't done that yet, what is a good thing to do is think about all the in-jokes you and your friends have had, and then give them some context and note them down, because that stuff is usually pretty decent material. And if you're not an app sort of person, well done you. You can have a tiny little notebook, which is like super cool. You wear it in your front pocket, and then you get shot, but then it blocks the bullet, and you're like, oh my god, I was saved by the power of fiction. Writes itself. On my computer, when it comes to drafting up and editing, I structure all ideas and putting together a rough plan. I like to use an app on Mac called TextEdit. It's just really lo-fi and really simple, and I can set it to Courier font so that I feel more professional. After that stage, you're going to want a script writing program, because doing this in Microsoft Word is for the birds. I don't recommend it. Usually they're quite expensive. I bought Final Draft. I don't know why I did that. I didn't need to. There's a website called Writer Duet, and that is, I think, $6.50 a month if you're a student, and $12.99 if you're not, and it has all the same features, and you can collaborate at long distance. I've lost so many scripts to hard drive failure, it makes me sad. So if you download something like Dropbox, you can have a folder on your computer that is always auto-updating. Next, your motivation. Scratch that. You don't need motivation, you need discipline. Motivation is for your characters, right? You need discipline. The thing is, for me, personally, I have no discipline. I have none at all. I've never been disciplined. I've always found it very, very difficult to get work done. Sometimes I've been writing for a few hours and then I'll be like, oh, I've been too productive today. This feels wrong. I should stop. So I built a model. It's a perfect day of writing for me, and it looks like this. 10 hours sleep. The clarity, my god. If you can't sleep for 10 hours, that's fine. I'm working today on 8, whatever. I start writing within an hour of waking up, the first chunk of the day, because I need a blank slate. No breakfast, because for me, that interferes with the writing for some reason. Maybe it's the insulin spike, I don't know. Works for me, don't know why. Strong coffee. Maybe you like tea. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Whatever. Dedicated profile on my laptop for writing. So it's got no Chrome or Firefox or whatever. I turn the Wi-Fi off. It's just blank, nothing on it. It's just for work. I leave the house to do it. So because I have traveled to a place and then sat myself down in that place to work, I get like twice as much work done because I know that I have placed myself in a location to get a specific thing done. I like somewhere gently busy. So like the corner of a cafe, so everything is kind of like moving around me, or like in a city library. Failing that, just anywhere you're not going to be bothered. If I'm adding to an existing bit of writing, I don't read it before I start because I'll just start editing, and it's using valuable brain glucose. That's really hard to say. Valuable brain glucose. Finally, if you're goal-oriented like me, this will work. You have to remind yourself why you're doing it. And for me, it's to have fun. I have to remind myself, hey, I really enjoy writing. I might write something that I really enjoyed today. My mood seems to carry to the page. Just remind yourself that you're going to get something good out of it eventually. Using this method, I'll always get at least an hour or two of writing done, if not a full day, which is an hour or two that I probably wouldn't have managed otherwise. Now, some gatekeeping bullshit. If you're a writer, and you've never started writing before, you can call yourself a writer, who the fuck's going to stop you? You have, as they say, about 1 million bad words inside you. That's a quote by Raymond Chandler, but you can attribute it to me if you like. Chuck Jones said the same thing to hit artists about drawing, but if a picture's worth 1,000 words, that's 1 billion words you got to get out of your system, so fucking begin. Either way, let this horrifying tidal wave of effort be motivating. Let it keep you going despite your technical limitations. Because if the words aren't doing what you want, that means you're on the way to being competent. And not all the words will be crap. Some of them will be good. My show came about when I got so bored of writing my very first screenplay at 22 that I had to remind myself why writing is fun. So I wrote the most fun thing I could think of, and that became the show I worked on for the best part of a decade. So now you're of the mindset that you want to have fun, you know why you're doing it, you have my toolkit, we can move on to the other video. And the next video is world building. You're going to make an entire world preloaded with tension and drama. If you want to see that video a week early, it's on our Patreon, link's in the bio. But if not, I'll just see you next week. Hey!